So today's topic is caring for someone in a care facility. And we know that family caregivers in the United States are providing the bulk of care for individuals who live in the community. That's actually to the tune of $450 billion worth of unpaid home care a year that families provide in the United States. That's a tremendous contribution. And again, part of the reason for the program that I work specifically with, which is the National Family Caregiver Support Program. And that program came about because there was a realization that, this is a job that sometimes is an indefinite job. You're going to be providing help for quite a while maybe, and you need some support in doing that. And so that's how the National Family Caregiver Support Program came about. This program does look a little different from area agency to area agency around the country. But in our area, in our 8-county service area, which is Franklin, Delaware, Fairfield, Fayette, Licking, Madison, Pickaway, and Union counties, we have an agency in each of those counties that we partner with. And you can go directly to them if you're looking for any assistance with respite care. The idea with this program is to provide some short-term help. Usually it's not going to be much more than $1,000 worth of assistance in a calendar year. But the hope is that then once we have a chance to talk with you and find out a little bit about your situation, that we can help you get connected with more ongoing help if you need it. So that's the caregiver program. And again, today, actually through that program, we devised a whole series of workshops around long-term care to assist family caregivers, and that's what this particular topic today is part of. It's part of what we call the Toolbox for Independent Living. If you are interested in other topics, on our website at coaaa.org, you can find the handouts for all of them there. In the booklet, actually, that is called the Toolbox for Independent Living. Getting a little bit short on those, or I brought them with me today. But you can download the whole booklet, or you can look at the various topics online there too. So today's topic, we try to empower caregivers to get the very best care for a loved one in whatever setting that they are in. And that may be home and community-based services, or that may be in a care facility, assisted living, or a nursing facility. And now we even have some facilities that are a little bit in between that. And they're sort of adult care homes. But whatever setting that you're in, what we know in long-term care is that there are definitely some constraints around staffing in whatever setting, whether it's home care or whether it's facility-based care. And that kind of trickles down then to the actual quality of care and the quality of life for our older adults and loved ones that might need some help. So this is about just educating you to be a smart consumer of long-term care in a care facility, and knowing kind of when to maybe think about a care facility for a loved one. We all know that there's no place like home. That's a given. But there are times when home maybe isn't the best place for the individual who needs the care and for the caregiver too. And so we try to kind of talk this through when caregivers call, when they're kind of facing this dilemma. So we give you some red flags here, some things to consider in your situation. And of course, one of the big ones is whether you're seeing in a loved one some behaviors that you can't predict. Maybe they're sometimes a little bit on the aggressive side, and maybe even an individual who can basically wander off and get lost. We also, in the same listing here, talk about just the caregiver who is experiencing sleep deprivation, and that sometimes is around when they're trying to keep an individual from wandering off. And I can tell you that for me, when I miss a few nights of uninterrupted sleep, I'm edging into illness almost. And there are caregivers that I don't know how they're still on their feet doing what they're doing. And so, again, sleep deprivation is huge. It's going to affect your ability to function across the board, let alone trying to care for another person. So something to think about. We have a lot of caregivers who are trying to transfer someone out of a wheelchair, trying to lift someone, and there is medical equipment out there to help with that. And with a doctor's order, that sometimes is covered under insurance and under Medicare. We have caregivers who are, providing so much round-the-clock care that they don't even get a chance to get out to get their own health care checkups. And sometimes they are experiencing their own health issues. And sometimes that gets to the point, too, where it limits their ability to care for someone in the home. And, we're all human. We all have our limits. And there are just times when you really miss doing some of the things that you used to do for yourself to stay a healthy, whole human being. And that can build. That frustration can build. It can become, really to the point where you're resentful. And that's human. That's not a failing. That's human. And again, another reason why maybe it's time to let someone else help with the care in a care facility. I always have said for years and years that, caregiving doesn't happen in a vacuum. The rest of life goes on. So we all have other stressors going on in our lives too. Things sometimes may be way more stressful than the caregiving. But it also is going to impact your total well-being. And so if there's a lot of other things going on in your life, that may be, maybe you're trying to take care of grandchildren and that sort of thing. We're seeing more and more older adults who are raising their grandchildren. So all of these things are things to consider and to think about when maybe then it's time to look for facility-based care. In choosing a care facility, we have some tools to help you with that. Once you have made the decision, then the next step is, okay, the where. And there is a lot of information out there to help you choose a facility. One way to do that is ltc.ohio.gov. And you can get a lot of good information on facilities out at that website. There is a nationwide website too, at medicare.gov, where it's called Nursing Home Compare. So pretty much similar information. They're not going to be out there if for some reason they don't take Medicare, but most of the facilities, at least nursing facilities, do. But that's another place where you can get a lot of good information. In Ohio, they are licensed by the Ohio Department of Health. And on that site, you're going to see some information from their most recent survey from the Ohio Department of Health. That's something that if you go to the facility to tour it, you can always ask to see the full report of what was found in that inspection. And it's good to know. Actually, on the ltcohio.gov website, in some respects, I think it will even let you compare where a facility lines up with other facilities in the state. That isn't, I think, so much the inspection data, though. I believe that is more resident and family satisfaction data. But you can see where, what the state average is and where they come in next to the state average on that. One of the, I think, biggest ways, though, to get a good feel for any facility is absolutely nothing beats going and visiting and touring. And going more than once. Going when you're not being given a formal tour, but just go in and look around. You obviously have to sign in and you can't go into people's rooms and that sort of thing. But going when, perhaps staffing might be a little lighter, just see what it's like. Going around mealtime. I think one of the biggest challenges sometimes in any facility is having enough staff to make sure that everybody who needs help eating gets help eating. So going around lunchtime or dinner time and seeing how that's working can also be helpful. Definitely, I think important too to ask questions of the facility and observe the interaction between individuals and the care staff. There is a big push now for what we call person-centered care. which really just means we're individualizing care in both home and community-based services and in a care facility, that we are really paying attention to what's important to that person on a day-to-day basis in their lives. If this person has been a night owl all their life, you're not necessarily going to, require them to go to bed at 9 o'clock. These are the things that are important in someone's quality of life. And we're trying to move more that direction than we've been able to do in the past. But the reality is that, again, with the staffing issue, sometimes that's difficult. So you may be the one who has to kind of make sure the staff knows your loved one and knows some of their preferences, knows them as a person, knows a little bit about them and their life, so that they can individualize care a little bit. And that, whatever information you can share with the care staff in a facility is only going to help that. But do ask questions when you're in the facility. One is, are they licensed by the health department in whatever state you're looking in? Are they Medicare and Medicaid certified? What all is included in their daily rates? And how do they handle roommate issues? How do they handle complaints? What is the staffing ratio on all shifts, particularly weekends and evenings? How many staff members per individual there? Most facilities are going to offer therapies, but there may be an additional cost. That just depends if someone's there to live indefinitely or if they're there for rehabilitation. How is pain managed? What other services come into the facility? That's not necessarily, we don't have that listed on here. But do they have psychiatric services that come on site? Do they have podiatrists that come on site? Most facilities, hospice can come on site if needed. And hospice, any hospice really anymore, can come to about any facility. That law changed a number of years ago. Visiting hours, most facilities have gotten pretty wide open on visiting hours anymore, and that's the way it should be. This is the person's home, and so they should be, again, back to the person-centered care. They should be able to have their visitors when they want to, but find out if there are restrictions. And another one that didn't make it on the list here that is very important is which doctors go to the facility. I think most people don't realize that your community doctor may not go to a nursing home at all, may not go to any nursing homes. Often the selection is very limited in a given facility. You may have one doctor, you may have two or three. So important to find out who the doctor is that's coming, and also to maybe just chat with the staff a little bit about, how responsive is this doctor when something is needed. I was really fortunate. When my dad was in a facility, I had a doctor that would call me at 10 o'clock at night if I needed something changed for my dad. He was a gem and worth, that was just a huge consideration in us choosing the facility that we chose. And then how is care managed after normal working hours, normal business hours? Things can get a little quiet sometimes in facilities, and sometimes we do have folks that do have some aggressive behaviors and that sort of thing. So good to discuss, perhaps even with the director of nursing when you're considering a facility, how they handle that. How do they handle crises after hours? Well, we do have a nursing home residence bill of rights. I'm just briefly going to kind of summarize those. Free from physical, verbal, mental, and emotional abuse, the right to be free from physical and chemical restraints, and medications, some medications, I can tell you, for example, psychotropic medications to control psychotic type symptoms are considered a form of restraint. They have the right to be obviously treated with dignity and respect, and to have their privacy when they're getting any sort of personal care, that their medical, social, and emotional needs are met. that you understand the charges, these are itemized, and to participate in their own care planning. When an individual goes into a facility, they begin to develop a care plan for that individual. They do a very thorough assessment, and then periodically they re-evaluate that, usually every 90 days, and most facilities will hold a care conference, and the individual has the right to be at that care conference, and usually the family member that's involved with their care is notified by the facility too. And this is a great way to share information and your observations. It's an opportunity to sit down with all of the professionals that are caring for your loved one, whether, it's usually going to be the unit manager, nurse, the dietitian, the activities coordinator, the social worker. You got everybody in the same room to hear the same thing at the same time. And I think that's incredibly valuable. Individuals have control for a transfer or discharge. Facilities typically have to give 30 days notice on a discharge, nursing facilities. Any individual should be encouraged to do as much as they can for themselves. And sometimes, we can provide a little too much help too. So I think, a staff that does encourage someone to do what they can for themselves is always helpful. My father made an incredible recovery from a very devastating stroke, but he had quite a great team working with him who really did coach him, encourage him, push him, and he had his own will to get back on his feet, and that made a tremendous difference in the recovery he made. It just wouldn't have happened without that whole team effort. So, a little bit on the lighter side here real quick. I think our time's coming to a close here. Again, caring for a loved one in a facility is also about just what helps them enjoy life. And your loved one better than anybody else. My dad was a huge animal lover, and there were dog pictures all over the room. He was also a big fan of coconut cream pie, and so about every visit I shot through Frisch's on my way there and grabbed a piece of coconut cream pie. It's really those kinds of things. Maybe taking in some food that is never going to be on the menu. For him, believe it or not, it was Limburger cheese and onions. And obviously that wasn't going to be on the menu. But the things that all of us would miss. Maybe Kentucky Fried Chicken, maybe White Castles or Coney Islands, whatever is going to be something that kind of, perks somebody's appetite up a little bit. You can take in music. I took my boom box in a lot. Photo albums are a great way to just have a wonderful visit sometimes. Movies. I had a radio. Dad's vision was impaired from the strokes, and so I had a type of radio that he could pick up baseball games on very easily and didn't have to worry about tuning it. Of course, books, animals. I took my dog to the facility, or if Annie didn't go with me, most facilities now have a resident pet, a cat or a dog, and since he was a big pet lover, if I didn't have Annie with me, I would go get the resident dog and bring the dog to my dad's room. Or bring the cat in and let him hold the cat. So be creative. One of the things, he loved the old radio show, The Shadow, and I managed to find the tapes and so that he could listen to The Shadow. So again, you know what has been important in your loved one's life and what they've enjoyed, and maybe you have to scale it down a little bit, but it doesn't mean that it's completely impossible to do some things. And as far as taking a loved one out of a facility, very, very important to gauge whether they have the endurance for that or not. My last endeavor to take Dad home for a brief visit did not work well. I was not prepared to do the transfers. And it was, you know, we made it. I didn't hurt him, but it was worrisome. So important to know that you can actually manage their care if you take someone home for a visit or out for a day trip. Talk to the facility staff. They are with them, you know, all day, every day, and can give you some insight or maybe even teach you how to help maneuver someone. And if they haven't been out for a while, try to kind of prep your loved one a little bit so that this isn't something you spring on them. For some folks, it may be too confusing or overwhelming. We also learned that with my dad's vision situation, that actually riding in the car made him car sick, and it was because of the vision issue due to the strokes. So, you know, these are just some things to pay attention to. You know, you need to plan for any incontinence issues. You might need some pads for the car, and of course, take enough medication to last you. Even if there'd be a problem, take some extra medication so that their medication regimen doesn't get interrupted. Know that, you know, be careful to get some instruction on using any medical equipment that you might need to use too. This can be very enjoyable, and you know, getting someone out now and then can certainly break up their days, and you know, keeping them involved in holiday traditions and celebrations and that sort of thing. You just need to be sure you do your homework so that it's safe and enjoyable for everybody. All right, well, I think I'm going to just kind of wind down here. There in the resource section, again, it repeats some information about the caregiver support program and gives you some other resources to help you. Never hesitate to reach out if you have questions. I am usually at the end of the phone, not out in the community, so I'm happy to help, and lots of good folks at my agency that can provide you some good guidance and resource information and referrals. So thank you so much for your time and attention, and I wish you all the very best in caring for your loved ones. Thank you.